Welcome to Larry's Library. This week I've got something a little bit special. It's not a comic book. It's not a prose book either. Not exactly. It's kind of an art book. That's what I would call it. What I've got is Faeries of the Faultlines. And I would kind of characterize this as an art book with world building, maybe. But this, let's see my notes here. This is 184 pages. And it is, I would say, about 70% art with the remaining text. This was $39.95 MSRP, but don't be a chump. Don't pay $39.95. You can get it for $26.99 on Amazon. Of course, you got to risk Amazon's terrible packaging, but you know, sometimes it works out. Like I said, this is a nice hardback. The publisher on this is Eye of Newt Books, which is a really cool title. A really cool name for a publisher. Never heard of them before, but it is a nice quality bound book, as you can see in the B-roll here. Pretty sweet. The words and the art are by Iris Compiet. It has a couple of forewords, one by Brian Froud, wonderful artist there, and Alan Lee does the other one, another fantastic artist. I've done reviews on 2 of his art books, so if you haven't seen those, I will link those in the drop down or below, or you know how to find them. But yeah, this one is a bit difficult to explain. It's easier to show the scans, but it basically it works sort of as like a journal, as like a written journal of someone who's explored these fault lines. And what are the fault lines? The fault lines are areas of the world where the barrier between the magical realm of the fairies and our more mundane world is at its thinnest. And if you step into the right spot, you can enter their world and you can see them for what they are that is normally invisible to us. That's the premise here. And the premise is you've got a guided tour by someone who's been there. And so she draws these creatures that she's encountered, and she has partly written notes in what looks like a cursive font that she's just hand writing. It really looks that way. I don't know if it is, but it's pretty effective. But more on that later, because I got some problems with it too. But then there's some regular typed pieces that explain more about that particular race, because she explains that there are a myriad of fairies, different kinds, and she even includes dragons as among the fairy. So it's a very broad idea of the fairies being basically a lot of different supernatural creatures under this one umbrella of a title. You know, so you have sylphies and mermaids. There's aquatic ones. There is aerial ones. There is ones that live under the ground and burrow. You know, and there are some that look like flowers or other vegetation. Some that look like trees and that blend into trees. And it's very fascinating. I just loved it. If you're a fan of this sort of folklore, then you're going to love this book. And if you like this beautiful art, of course you're going to love it. And if you like it all together, like I do, you know, it's right up my alley. Yeah, I really love this book. And a lot of the creatures in it are very traditional, and then a lot of them are way not traditional and are a nice twist on an old sort of myth, you know, and she creates her own world throughout this. The only criticism I could levy at this probably is that I wish that she had done a little bit less of the cursive journal entry type font that's going on here, because I found it a little bit difficult to read at times, a little bit difficult to work out some of the words. And maybe that's just a me thing, but I would rather have the normal printed typeface. It was much easier to read that. But I mean, I get what she's going for here to make it look like a walking journal of, hey, I discovered this creature, and these are their habits. And, you know, it's almost like a field guide to the fairy. And in that, it succeeds wildly. I loved it. I mean, just look at this art. Some gorgeous stuff going on here, for sure. Yeah, I love this book, and I'm very happy to have it in my collection. I'm going to read from page 162 as an example of the entries that are in this book. It's so fantastic. So this one is for the Tooth Fairy. And some of this stuff is lighthearted, but some of it is dark and creepy, and this is kind of more the latter here. Tooth fairies have a very keen sense of smell due to their double set of nostrils that scour the air for the smell of rot. They can detect the scent of tooth decay from miles away. Traveling in packs, each of the fairies is appointed a specific task in the tooth gathering process. Now, I'm stumbling a little bit here because this is in the, as you can see, it's in the script style, and it's a little difficult to make out some of it. A couple will stand guard as a small group keeps the mouth open, allowing the others to then climb inside and pick away at the rotten tooth. Their bodies are covered in tooth-like something scales. See, I can't make that word out. So this is kind of an example of my critique of the book. I would have liked this better just as it being typed. I mean, I could still get the idea that it is from a journal entry without it being in the somewhat difficult to read cursive font that protect them from injury should they ever get trapped inside a mouth. They communicate with clicking sounds that resemble the chattering or gnashing of teeth. So I thought that was a cool entry. And a lot of the different lore that's explored here and the different types of fairy that she goes into great detail about are just like the actual myths we've all read growing up, and folklore from ages past, where they would explain away natural events that at that time science couldn't explain. Well, they would make up a story about a giant causing earthquakes, or some other thing causing lightning, or natural occurrences. And this is continued on in the fairy world here. It's great. A lot of the poisons and insects that are in the natural world you find out here are actually caused by fairy. It goes on like that to quite some detail, and I loved it. So I hope you like taking a pretty quick look at this book, and it's probably, if you like this kind of art, it's probably something you'll want to add to your collection. I am happy to have it, and I would like to see more from Iris Compiet for sure. I understand she has a YouTube channel where she shows some of her process in videos. I will link that up in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, and I'm going to see you next time.